Hi everyone, this is Mason at Train 2.0 and welcome to week 3 of the Elias Petterson deception tutorial. Today we will look at an internal hip rotation pattern Pettersson uses that we call the Pettersson dance. This pattern will allow for extreme ease in stick handling and even more deception by constantly moving your hips, which will actually help you stay in more control of your movements than just keeping tension in your hips. So the pattern itself has your feet on the ice, and all you're doing is going from internal hip rotation, where you have your toes pointed inward, and external hip rotation, where your toes point outward. If you've heard of the term snowplow, that's exactly what this looks like, right? We use the toes as a reference point for internal or external hip rotation because it's easier to see that than looking at the hips themselves, which are super complicated in of themselves to look at. For this to work, you have to not push, and your hips have to be constantly moving. For comparison, look at how stiff Johnson is here, and that the only movement in his body is pretty much in his arms. Where when we take a look back at Pettersson, his whole body is all over the place. So the misconception that your hips should stay in place does not apply here, because in order for this movement to be fluid and effective, it is not possible to do that with stiff hips. Also, you might be asking, why are we showing you a hip work pattern that has you move slowly or stay in place? This pattern takes standing still and weaponizes it by having you able to be under control, deceptive, and change in any direction. It prevents a player from attacking you because of the ambiguous body language. It gives you as a player multiple options: passing, shooting, escaping, and because your hips are always moving inactively, you have the option to explode in any direction because you're always loading something in your body by moving your hips. This means that Pettersson's deception does not come from his shoulders or his head or his hands, as other drone coaches would say, but his deception comes from his hips. Now remember that this is a pattern, not a mechanic. This means you can use whatever mechanics you can think of to bring some variety and deception to the drill. In order to understand this movement further, we will show you the Mackinnon V footwork pattern. This pattern in particular has definite mechanics as listed on the screen, where the Pettersson dance does not. So the pattern is in a V shape. In this case, Jason's going backwards in a stutter, then goes forward and attended to in corkscrew from externally rotating his hips. Then he internally rotates using a stutter to simultaneously stop and go backwards, and then the V restarts. The difference between the two patterns is the Pettersson dance is not limited to a V and has a very high cadence between internal and external hip transition, but it does not cover as much ground, so you can do this in place or to slowly move yourself in a certain direction. Both patterns are equally effective in their own situations and used quite often by the best NHLers, but they're also not often taught by coaches. So your coaching this week is to start out with the Pettersson dance and do that for about 25 reps a side. You will then regress to snow plows for 100 reps, and this little drill going from external rotation to internal rotation in a straight line for 100 reps. You'll then do the Mackinnon V pattern for 50 reps a side, and then go back to the Pettersson dance for 50 reps a side. And you can choose if you would like to do it in place or move in any direction of your desire. That's your choice. This was week 3 of the 6-week Elias Petterson deception tutorial and the final week of our free series on YouTube. If you would like to complete your training and join Train 2.0, there is a link in the description that will help you get started. Thank you for watching, and to you 2.0 members, see you next week where we will go over the Pettersson stick handling blend. See you then.